me, that was kind of disappointing. I guess God doesn't listen to me. So it was kind of, those kind of events happened. I remember um, even becoming an altar boy, doing all that stuff. But then my mother and father separated. They got, well, at the time they were separated. I was praying to God, God, keep them together. Don't do this. And sure enough, God said no. Because sometimes God does that. He says no to things we think are good things and what's supposed to happen. So I was 15, and at 15 you think you know everything. You kind of get that idea that it's yeah. And when they divorced, I didn't have to go to Catholic school. They put me in elementary, junior high at the time. And I remember at the time there was freedom. I don't have to go to church. I didn't see the need. I saw it to myself, it was kind of like a waste of my time. Sunday, I can sleep in. So in my mind, that's what I attributed to God. I just said, well, he doesn't listen to my prayers, and why do I have to go? Because when I go there, all they do is go genuflex, stand up, all of the motions, but no real purpose. I remember when I went to confession, it was always with the idea I had to make up something. I said, yeah, I hit my brother or something, because in order to go have communion, you had to go to confession, and then, so I went through those motions. So my faith really wasn't, in a religion. It was more of just cultural kind of a thing. And when I moved out, then I turned around. So I stayed, what I would say, from the time 8th grade, 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade. I lived my life as an unbeliever, thinking that religion really had no purpose. I didn't hate, people say you hate God. And I imagine, I can classify it as that now because I'm theologically informed. But at that time, it was just that he wasn't important to me. It was like, and that's the kind of thinking, and maybe some of you are thinking or have thought that way. So I looked at life from the standpoint of, and this is in high school. I went through public school and everything, and back. Wait, I'm going back or forward here? Nope, that was too far. Now I did it. Now I'm telling you. Can you restart me? Okay. Okay. So, no, I'm going forward. Why am I going forward? I'm supposed to go back. No. Again. Okay. Let me just do this without, I don't know. Right there. That's the one I wanted. Okay. So just to give you an idea, here's my family on the right-hand side. My sister was going to become a nun. My other's family, we all went to Catholic church and everything. And but then when the divorce happened, I ended up living at Earhart Junior High. I remember getting into a fight because some girl I liked, but the boyfriend was jealous. So it was one of those things that I got into fights, but I never seemed to win them. It was kind of a thing. And then I went to Western High School, and during that time, I was just out of control. I think I would go only because there was something to do. I really didn't pay attention in school. When I graduated, I had a 1.7 grade point average. But I would work. When I was 17, I was working at midnights at this one factory. I lied about my age, but I had money, so I could buy beer. I could buy things, and so I didn't really live that way. And I thought I was content to some extent. And then whenever I had heartbreaks, and young people do that. I know still. that you fall in love with this person, and then this person there's betrayal, there's all these other things. And so in my life, I always started to get the idea, it's just all about luck. It's out of my control. Sometimes things happen good and sometimes they're bad. So that's how I lived in high school. I'd get tickets, go to jail. No, not for killing nobody or anything like that, but it was like B&E, breaking and entry, things of that type. And so most of you guys probably, don't know me that well, or people that know me now, no, that wasn't him. It ain't the way he is. But yeah, that's true. But that took change. And then we have work experience. Was at 15, I worked as a bakery doing, it was an oven. I had to put the tray in with the Mexican bread, and then I had to turn it around, put it back in. They paid me $15 a week. But when you're a kid, $15 is a lot of money. The first thing I did, I remember, was buying half a gallon of ice cream, and I snuck it all for myself. I didn't want to put it in the kitchen, didn't want to share with my brothers, nothing. So I hid, and I remember eating that, and that's how I got my cut here, because I was throwing out the evidence out the window, broken window, and I pulled it back in, it cut. So I said, well, that's what I get for being greedy or something. So it's, and that's what I'm saying, as I understand the idea of being an unbeliever, because I remember those feelings and what I thought and the ideas. So any kind of heartbreaks was with, you drink a little bit more, kind of numb the feeling. Did a lot of fights, and I even got into a knife fight. Of course, I wasn't the one with the knife. The other person was, and the only thing I could remember was kicking it away from him, and was enough to, but I got beat up anyway. So, anyway, so that's my life in the early, with experience. I worked at, nope, I did it again. I worked at Blue Cross Blue Shield as a janitor. Then I got a job at General Motors at the downtown Grand Boulevard, and I worked there for a couple years. But I remember on Saturdays they wanted to wash windows behind the elevators, and so they gave me 5 cents more an hour to climb out the window, hook up to the sides, and wash the windows. So what my life was worth was 5 extra cents, right? But at the time, it was not that important to me, with lack of purpose and things of that type. Worked the midnights at that factory, and that's why high school was kind of like a blur. But I showed up, but I can remember sleeping in class and things of that type. And when I got to window washing, that was a real good job. Education-wise, I went to Western High School, got my degree, my high school degree in 1972, but I couldn't do simple math. I didn't know how to do fractions, decimal point, all the simple stuff that most people, when you get out of high school, are supposed to know. Reading. I'd read a newspaper article and I'd go to sleep because just not paying attention. So you might say I'm retarded, but yeah, I'm retarded now. Retired now, but at that time I was behind. I was really behind. The thing for me was here, my early spiritual journey. As like I said, I attended Catholic school, even became an altar boy and everything like that. But again, another religion took over after I graduated out of high school, and that was the time when Bruce Lee was karate in movies and things. That to me, karate was a big thing. And sure enough, I had to go borrow money. It was $1,000, I think, in order to pay for the membership for a year. So I had to borrow it, first loan that I would ever have. And so they charged me like 20% interest. Who knows? It was the time. But I went ahead, and that took on my religious beliefs. The sense that I was able to accomplish. I was strong. I became my body. I was strong. I was able to defend myself. And this idea, if you see here, the yin and yang, the whole idea, well, that's just falls in the same philosophy. It was just good luck, bad luck. Some things happen good, some things happen bad. So there is no sense of real purpose. It's just what is what is, kind of a thing. And so it supported this idea of what I need, why I need Catholicism, Christianity, nothing like that. I didn't need that. I said, well, I'm surviving, but then this gave me some sense of, okay, now that I'm in good shape, now I'm going to go back to school, and I want to be an engineer like my brother. He was going to Michigan State, and I said, I want to do that. So I went in, and one of the first things that happened, I went to one of these college evaluation tests. I think it took a couple of days. And of course, I said to myself, before I do that, I'm going to go Evelyn Wood speed reading and see if I can pick up my reading, so that way I can do a little better. And I got the results. I remember the lady telling me right off the bat, says, well, we were looking at your results and everything. And you do good in reading, at least your high school level. But math, chemistry, all these different because I just saw pictures and I was supposed to select. I found that she told me, well, what do you do for a living? Well, I'm a window washer at General Motors. She says, that's probably a good job for you, because you really don't, you failed everything. And then she tells me something that rung to my soul and said, you have no mechanical ability. And I said, well, what do you mean? And so I walked out. I remember walking down the street thinking to myself, yeah. But then when she said, you have no mechanical ability, that rang in my head, because I used to go to my uncle's and we used to do brake jobs, rebuild engines. I used to help. So I had some idea. We rebuilt transmissions. So they had books, and I was able to help. I wasn't doing it all by myself, but I said, I have mechanical ability, so it can't be right. I know I don't have book knowledge. That's my problem. I said, so I went to College of Engineering. He said, no, we can't accept you. Your grade point average is too low. But if you go to this liberal arts for 1 year, if you do well, then we'll consider taking you in. So on my transcripts, it actually says admission, experimental. So they were experimenting. Said, well, maybe he'll get by. I did well. And I can remember trying to get the math, and I go to this one tutor, and he would say, well, this, spend an hour with me, and I still didn't get it. And then, so he says, well, I got to go someplace else, and I do tutoring over there. Well, where's that at? I followed him along. So I come to know his name was Gutierrez, which is a friend that came, the brother of one of my friends. So I had to study weekends at the library and everything, because I knew I was slower, but I was stubborn, like that little kid who got kicked on the ground. It was just my mind, I'm going to do it. And as a result, after about a year, I was able to go into engineering. But before that, there was, at this liberal arts class, I was indoctrinated into the communist viewpoint. The idea that religion is nothing but opium of the masses. It's just there to keep poor people poor. That's what it's for. That's why the religion is there. And I said, yeah, that makes sense to me. So it kind of reinforced what I already thought about life. And of course, I would work full-time, go to school part-time, so that's why it took me 8 years to get my engineering degree, my first degree. And of course, during the summers when I didn't have classes, I got into trouble. It was always, it was a time of like vacation, because if I didn't have class, I had all this other time. So that's what I did. And then, as I said, I came to this realization that life is nothing but a roller coaster. You have some high times when everything, I could say I'm happy or I'm content right now, but then the low times, I remember getting tickets for, I had my car, I was driving to college at Wayne State, and the engine blew. And I was getting off the freeway, and it smoke all over the place, and I get pulled over by the police, and they give me a ticket for excessive smoke. Another time, that's what I said. Life, I think the Lord was kicking me while I'm down, because that way you don't be, so you won't be content. So that's how I looked at life. And one time it was my birthday, and I walk out, my car's missing. Somebody stole it on, my birthday. So I had to walk to welfare office and kind of get some money to survive. But anyways, all that to tell you is that I just wanted I give you this background so you kind of get an idea of where I came from before I finally came to reflect and understand what God is all about. Because I didn't know up to this point. Up to this point, he was a remote idea. My brothers, on the other hand, they came to the Lord, several years before I did. Like, I remember them trying to talk to me, and I always had some smart answer. And he said, I'm going to go to hell because some idiot ate an apple off of a tree. Come on, what kind of story is that? And I'm saying that didn't make sense. And I thought I won the argument from that. But again, I remember going to Toledo, Ohio, got into a fight, and then my friends got all beat up. I did too. And then the next week, I told them, come on, we're going to go back. They didn't want to go. I said, I'm going back. Nobody's going to kick me out. At that time, I had no fear of death. That's the scary part. I want you to understand, most of the time when you're young, you think you're invincible. Death is not. So it wasn't that I was afraid I'd die. I didn't care. But they had come to my house several times, and I just wasn't ready yet. And the Lord, I'm saying, not bad answer to say not ready yet, because many times, there was times I could have died from a wreck, because I used to go 100, 120, 10 miles an hour in my car, and, no fear, didn't care if I died or not. I always thought to myself, well, if I die, it's the same thing as the whole world universe disappears. Both, it comes out to be the same. I no longer exist, and who cares? Kind of So, I graduated in 1982. And I can remember in 1982, that was the year, I was transferring from being a technician to an engineer. I got a job with Detroit Edison. Life was good from the standpoint of I accomplished. I got my degree. I was doing fine, but I was depressed. I had no, I says, now what? So what? I've accomplished this, but big deal. And at the time, my
my daughter was my girlfriend at the time. She was pregnant and was coming. My daughter was being born, and that's the year she was born, 1982. So he calls me and says, "I want the best for my daughter. But I want her to be happy." And it hit me like a ton of bricks. He says, "I'm not happy. How can I give something that I don't even have?" It's kind of one of those things you say, well, I know my dad, would give me the strictness, but, what purpose, why? None of that was in my understanding. Her birth caused me to think about, my whole aimlessness of life. So at the time, I remember reading some of these books, the late great Planet Earth, some things that frightened. Said, okay, there's something on the other side when you die, and you may not want to be on that side of the world, when it happens. So, or that way of thinking. So I ended up, I was at home by myself, sitting at the couch. I got up and I changed all 6 channels that there were in at that time. And when you change channels, it isn't like today. You just push a button. You had to get up and turn the dial and say, okay, well, they're talking news. I don't know news. And I kept on changing. Finally, it came up with a face of not this guy, but somebody like him, a Mexican-looking guy, and he was talking. And I said, oh, okay, kind of sounds interesting. Let's see what he has to say. Started talking about his life and the idea of this aimlessness and not being happy. And he said, even though he had a job, and I said, man, that's me. And then finally he mentions the word, but when Christ came into my life, I said, oh no, this is a religious thing. So I was ready to get up, but again, like I said, you have to get up off the couch to go change the channel. I said, didn't feel like doing that. I just left it on. And he kept on, and he explained, and little by little, it penetrated that whole message of saying, and I'm sure the gospel wasn't presented in the best with all of the information, but I just knew one thing. I wanted purpose in life. And I knew I needed help. And that's the point of this testimony. I hope you understand. The idea is to let you know when you get to that point, and sometimes it takes a couple of knockdowns, beat-ups, and everything else, but it got me to the point where I had to reflect and says, I really do need help. And that's what I asked the Lord. I got down on my knees, and I asked, God, help me. I'm lost. I need your help. Did I say, I want you to save me? Did I say, I reject sin? I didn't even have enough information. As I said, my idea of sin was just something I have to make up in order to tell the priest about. Because, I know you don't murder. I didn't murder anybody. So for me, it was just that relief, that moment when I did feel that the relief, like a load off my shoulders, because I'm saying I'm handing it to God, and He'll take care of me. And people say, was I saved at the time? I believe so. As a matter of fact, that next weekend I went to the church and I stepped forward and I, the preaching and everything, but I already had in mind, I'm going to go forward because I want people to know that I'm saved. And then I did. And then I talked to the pastor, and then we talked about baptism. So a few weeks later, I got baptized. And again, I always tell people, new believers are not like instant coffee from the standpoint that you'll see it right away. I can remember I was still struggling with different things. And I can remember getting baptized and then going to the bar to go celebrate. Because that's how you celebrated. And I used to celebrate. But I didn't get drunk because I learned that from getting beat up a few times where I was not able to defend myself. So I said, I'll never do that again. I'll never get that drop down, unable to stand kind of a feeling. But I knew I also, when I was looking for a job after graduating, I put an application in to General Motors at the Tech Center, and they do robotics and things of that type. I said, well, I worked as a technician. I programmed some robotics there so I said, I'm a shoe-in. I got experience. I got my degree, a good degree. I mean, I wasn't, like I said, not the sharpest, but I wasn't the dullest either of the pencils. So I knew I had the job, but they never called me. Never said anything. So I called up and said, well, what's the deal? Well, we gave the job to someone else. And I said, okay, well, I just want to know if that person was more qualified than me. That's what I'm asking for. And sure enough, I went ahead downtown, put a equal employment complaint, and they set up a time where I was going to face the person that was doing the hiring, and I was supposed to go down there and talk. What I did, I got saved. So when that appointment was going to come up, I said, no, I'm not going. The Lord forgave me. The Lord has changed me, and for me to hold a grudge against anybody would be wrong. So I went there early, and I told the people, I'm going to cancel my complaint. They said, are you sure? Yeah, I'm sure. And as I walked out, after doing that, I walked out, and I remember going to the elevator, and then this one guy comes out. He's got looks like two lawyers, and he hadn't slept all night. And I said, yeah, that's the guy, because I had the interview with him. And but I walked past him, I didn't say anything, and he was still headed to the place. So I remember that, and I'm telling you, I know the Lord changed my heart. After bringing it to him, asking him for help, and from then on, many decisions I made. A month later, after I got saved, I moved out of the house, and I told my girlfriend, I said, I can't live here no more. I can't, because I'd be a hypocrite if I keep on doing this. So, of course, there was troubles in doing all of that. But I said, I still want to see my daughter. As long as you let me see my daughter. I used to get her on the weekends, so I was a weekend dad. So as I said, my decisions, God doesn't, when you sin and everything, he doesn't automatically just clean everything up. There's no consequences. My consequence, I never had a full relationship with my daughter. She had to spend time there, and I remember paying for school and doing a lot of things, but she was like the center of my life, and so I moved everything around her. And then we ended up going to First Latin American Baptist Church, and then after that I moved. And now the next phase, I guess, of events was my brother is a Jehovah's Witness. He still is, real strong. And he says, well, we're going to have Bible study. Well, that's a good idea. I'll go to a Bible study. And so I went with him, and and then at one time he caused me to think, and he says, right here it says Jesus Christ is the firstborn of all creation. See that? So he was created first. So he's not God. From my Catholic upbringing, yeah, he's God. But could I defend myself? Could I turn around and say, well, right here in Scripture, let's take a look at this context. I didn't know enough about the Bible to fit in a thimble. And I remember going to different other Bible studies where they would say it was like a home thing, and then I went. This was at Wayne State, and I sat down with two other guys, and they were saying, well, right here in Hebrews chapter 6, it says that that you could lose your salvation, and right here. And then the other guy says, no, it's eternal security. You can't lose your salvation. And then they turn over to me and says, George, what do you think? I said, what kind of Bible study is this? You're asking the dumbest guy that knows nothing. How are you going to ask me? Is that how truth is found, by differences of opinion? Whoever has the strongest voice? So I knew there was something wrong with that whole idea. And then, like I said, being tossed to and fro with my brothers, his ideas and everything. And then finally, what came was when I was reading chapter 7 of Matthew, and it says, not all those that call me Lord, Lord will enter into the kingdom. But in that day, many will say to me, Lord, we cast out demons, we did miracles in your name. And he says, I tell you the truth, I'll turn to them and say, go away, I never knew you. And it put the fear of God in me again. I mean, up this time, God was the one that saved me. He helped me, and I can pray to him and all that. But at that time, I said, he's a judge. His righteousness. And I'm saying, how could Jesus turn to these people? They were casting, they didn't say we got drunk in your name or beat up 50 people in your name. They were casting out demons. They were doing good things. So why did Jesus tell them, go away, I never knew you? And so for me, I was scared. I said, I might be one of those people. Maybe I was supposed to stay in the Catholic religion. Maybe my brother's right, Jehovah's Witness. I went to Pentecostal churches. I went to different churches to kind of find out. Somebody explained to me what's going on. And sure enough, at work, a friend of mine who introduced me to some teaching on a tape, and where this guy was going through the Greek, the Hebrew, and giving details. And I said, this is what I need. I'm being an engineer, I'm used to looking at details, getting down, whatever problem it is, it's got to break it down to elements. And that's where I ended up. I ended up going and, once again, I did it again. That doubting the salvation, and then I got influenced by these other teachers who helped me understand. With these tapes, I would be able to listen for an hour, and then I put the next tape in. So I was being a fanatic, but that's just, I said, well, I got to make up the time. I don't have a lot of time. I've lived here for almost 30 years, and now I have to catch up. So that's how I thought of it. It's like a race. And then I met a pastor who I met him at a conference, and then I asked him, where are you at? And he says, I'm in Berkeley, close to an hour away from where I live. And he says, we have Bible studies on Tuesdays and on Sundays, so you're more than welcome to show up. And sure enough, I would show up an hour before, stay there till an hour later, and then, at 10, 11 o'clock, I'd be headed home, and next morning I had to go to work. So it was, but he answered a lot of the questions. And that's what I enjoyed. I mean, it wasn't just, yes, no. He'd say, well, let's take a look at, here's how you look at this, and here's in this passage, and every. So for me, I was being fed. I got fed, even though I had gone for a year to First Latin, and I went to the Sunday school, and and I heard the gospel like every Sunday, but I didn't know. And then what this was doing for me was answering those questions that I needed to have answered. And so then I decided, well, these guys are telling me this is in the Greek and the Hebrew, so I got to study Greek. It's because I used the Strong's Concordance. I said, I can check him, but, I really need a little bit more. So I went to William Tyndale, took some courses. So if I tell you that I went to school for more than half my life, that's a fact. Because I high school, college, then get my master's. And I studied Greek theology at Detroit Baptist Theological Seminary. That's how I met Ken. And before I came, I had already developed a lot of my understanding. So this just reinforced and helped in my understanding of many things. And do you have to have a master's degree in divinity or theology to be a good Christian? No. I think what it is that different people are slated differently. They're made different. Me, that's what I needed. In order to make sure I wasn't going to be that one standing before Jesus Christ where he says, why should I let you into heaven? And I didn't want to say, well, I cast out demons. I didn't. I don't want that answer. I'm saying, I believed. I trusted in your promise. The only reason I go to heaven, because you promised it. That's all I base my whole salvation on. And it's given me confidence, and it's been years. And there's times I'm teaching theology, teaching soteriology, all these different things, but I always have that in mind. It says who, what, when, where, why. I want to make sure that whatever question comes out, I have an answer for it. Not that it's perfect, and I know I have some things that are probably wrong. I just don't know which ones they are, or else I change them. So, and it looks like I'm running out of time. Okay? And so just to let you know, okay, I've been teaching at different churches. I started off at the Metropolitan Bible Church. I taught my daughter when she was about 5. I taught the Bible. And one of the things you'll find is this is when you learn the information real well, when you can explain it to a little child. And you try not to confuse them and not say it so simply that it's wrong. So all of that, it caused me to study more. And then I went to, in the Detroit area, I went all the way to Canada, in Windsor, taught there at this one church who called and said, hey, we need somebody to teach classes, but in Spanish. And I said, well, I got Spanglish. I don't know Spanish very well, but I know English. And sure enough, I was able to, little by little, because people says, well, that's okay. These people know a little English, and you know a little bit of Spanish, and somehow we'll get through this. So sure enough, I was able to do that. And then that's when my first short mission trips were going to Nicaragua. Manual labor, because I wasn't ready to teach in Spanish completely. So, mixing cement, putting bricks there. They had one job that was great. They had computers that needed the virus taken off and put new discs in and things of that type. I said, I could do that, and it's air conditioned. This is the best way to suffer for Jesus at the time. And, well, let's see, it's 12. I was supposed to be done at 12? Yes? True story? I don't even know. I'm used to teaching for 2 hours at a time. So, but anyways, just to finish this up, I could go into more things that I've done, but I'd rather just let you know what it took to get me to the spot where the Lord could use me. And at first, it's simple things that you can do. Over at that first Bible class was setting up the tables, because he had it in his basement. So we set up the chairs, the tables, and so I would go early, and that way I had more chance to talk to that pastor and everything. So there's no job that you could say, well, that's too menial, every piece of it is part, when you do it with the heart that you want to serve the Lord, he opens up doors, and that's what he did. I was invited to Canada to teach there, and then I was teaching at Sunday school at this other church plant, and then some Panamanians came in the back. I said, well, you look like Mexicans and everything. I said, what are you guys doing here? Well, they were taking English, and they had to live for a couple months in Canada, and then they found out what I was doing. They said, can you come to Panama? And I said, okay, I'll do that. So I've been to Nicaragua, I've been to India, and each of them have their types of things that happen. You say to yourself, well, okay, in Nicaragua, I've been there when they had revolts, streets blocked off. And I say, well, this look like Detroit. So, car stealing. So, it's just where I go. And now, I fit right in. My disguise is good. So that makes it easier. And then India, I can remember going to this one village that we had to drive several hours and then get into one of these frisbees to go across a river to get into that village. And there still had alligators there. And I looked over, but I said, well, Lord knows. And in Panama, I remember getting stuck, traveled over there, and they lost my luggage. So I ended up going to the store, pick up some T-shirts. I had to borrow some shorts from somebody, and then I bought some pink sandals. I was glad that the pastor was with me. He says, I'll wear the pink sandals. I said, oh, man, thank you. So he gave me his blue ones. But sitting there, and, it's hot and everything. So but the good thing is I think the Lord built me with that flexibility and things of that type. And stubbornness. So he's used that. Any questions? Yeah, we can stop here. And anything I may have covered or clarification. Now you know me a little bit better. Now you can make fun of me and things of that type. Oh, good. Yes. Actually, I'm in Florida. I moved down there to take care of my mom for about 7 years. She just passed away in January, but I got so comfortable in Florida, I said, no, I'd rather be there. So I'm one of those reverse snowbirds. They come up here for the winter for a couple of months and then head back. So I'm here only for about a month and a half.
Did your daughter come to the Lord?
Absolutely. She came, she grew up with me. Every Sunday we were always at church, and I had chances to talk at her, make sure she was saved. But teenagers, how that happens after high school. There was a brief time where she decided to take her own road, but I thank God that she came back. And after about 3 years, she came back and says, Dad, I still want to have a relationship. And because I had told her, if you're doing this, I can't support you. I can't help you, but if you come back. So she did, and I thank the Lord. No doubt in my mind that he's the one that worked it out. Yeah. Heartache, but again, that's what I'm saying. Christianity is not a walk in the park, but he will strengthen me. We'll go through anything and everything, loss of anything. Oh, okay.
If you could change anything in your past, what would it be? Or do you have any regrets?
Well, I thought about that one, and in my mind, I wouldn't have wasted so much time being an unbeliever if I could have. But I thank the Lord that He did push me through there, because now it makes it easier for me to communicate with other people that have not come to the Lord yet. I can see, and it gives me a sense of grace toward them, because I said, if it wasn't for the grace of God, that would be me, that other person. So, I think that would be one of the main things. And then, that I wouldn't have, that if I would have gotten married and my daughter would be born, I would have been able to influence her a lot more and things of that type. And those are the kind of things that you think about. But again, I think the Lord has His plan, and that includes all those ups and downs. Yeah. Okay. Good. All right. Why don't we pray? Father, we give you thanks for this time you've given us, that we are able to see your hand in my life, Father. I know that this this life is made with the purpose, your purpose and your plan, Father. And I hope that this may help some people as they communicate to others or see things that were in me and others and be able to demonstrate grace toward them. That they too may come to that point where they realize their total need, their total inability to save themselves, Father. And that life cannot be content, cannot be happy apart from you, Father. Pray that you might take each one of us, keep us safe as we go back to our families or back to our jobs, that you can use today and what it was taught today in Sunday service and here for your glory, your honor, in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.